Hello, friends. My name is Mariana Svernik, and I will show you how I make traditional or semi-traditional Ukrainian Easter eggs with the technique of wax resist, that sometimes in English, sort of English take on this is called egg batik, because it's similar to the batik technique. And I will show you a technique today that is one of the two most common techniques. This one is slightly less common, and it's called a drop pull technique. Now, what I have here is an emptied regular chicken egg. It has the hole on one end. And I will use this sort of tool. Probably can't see it very well. This is just a sort of a nail or a pin. And this one is like sort of a bit of a semi-flat pin. Sometimes people use the round pin that works in similar ways, which I will dip in hot wax, and then I will apply patterns to the egg with the wax. So I will start doing this. I will move my camera so you can see what is happening here. And I guess I'll talk as I'm doing this a bit. So something that you can't quite see so well is that I'm putting my tool with the end. Okay, maybe this is better. With the tip into the wax. I have hot wax here in this reservoir here. And I'm gonna wait for it to warm up a bit. The wax is actually hot already, so the pin will warm up quite fast, and I'll do a bit of a like test stroke on the paper. This looks pretty good. It's called a drop pull technique because first you drop and then you pull, and it gives you these sort of semi-tear shaped patterns. First, what I have to do though, I have to close the hole with wax, which I will do by just applying some, and maybe another one. Okay, all right, that's good enough. Now, this particular technique I like it because it is quite simple. You don't have to have so many of sort of advanced kinds of equipment that you might need to have otherwise for the other type of a technique. And also I like it because my grandmother used to do this. She used to do this with a sort of regular matchstick, which she would dip into the tin of hot wax that she would just heat on the stove. And this technique, she learned it because she grew up in the place where this technique was used, which was in what is now Poland, but these were the sort of Lemko territories. Lemkos were a very kind of interesting and quite specific group of ethnic group of what you would call Western Ukrainians. And this technique is also used in Western parts of Ukraine, but also in the parts that are now in Poland and Slovakia. And this technique is used as the only wax technique that is used in Lithuania. The other Lithuanian Easter eggs are done by dyeing them and scratching them, or scratching out the dye. And it is also used in parts of Germany, where there are these pockets of probably Slavic origin populations. You might have experienced or heard about these eggs being called Sorbian eggs. And the Sorbian eggs technique is based on this drop pull, but then it is sort of developed quite in directions that you don't quite see in other places. And this is quite an archaic technique, or at least this is what it feels to me. Now my hands are shaking a bit being on camera, which is odd, but this is what it is. So I'm gonna keep applying the wax on the other end. Now this pattern is a very simple kind of a pattern. This kind of a pattern you would see done in pretty much anywhere where these type of drop pull eggs are done. And these are these sort of sun shape or the flower shape or the star shaped kinds of ornaments. And I think it is used there because it makes sense to use them with this particular technique. It's one of the most logical things to do. Now, the other kind of technique that is used is, I guess it doesn't have any specific name because that is the more common one. And then what you do in the other technique is you have a sort of a funnel-like instrument. I can show you. I have right here. An instrument sort of like this, where you have a funnel. You put the hot wax in here, you heat it on the candle, and it comes up comes out through the tip. And so the other technique allows you to produce even lines, and also depending on the size of your the tip of the funnel, you can produce them thicker or thinner. This kind of technique does not allow you to produce even lines because there will always be a fatter end of the stroke and a narrower end of the stroke. You can produce sort of dots that are more or less even, but you can't quite produce the line that is even unless you use a very thin pin, and then you can sort of reach a kind of semi-even line. Now I have a bit of the guideline here on the egg done with the pencil. The harder the pencil, the easier it is to sort of, for it to come off later, so it doesn't bother the pattern. But often these kind of eggs would be done even more than the regular technique eggs would be done without any sort of guiding lines. You would just do whatever sort of feels like is coming to you. This is a fatter end. Here the flower is going to be bigger. Here on the other end, I just have 4 dots, and that's it. Okay, now in the main band, what you often see with eggs, that you will have the top and the bottom as design, and then you will have sort of the main band that will do something. There are different ways of dividing up the egg and the pattern on the egg, but this is quite common to do it this way. Okay, so now what I'll have here the dot, and then I will have this sort of pattern going towards that dot in a sort of not quite half circle. It's something like this. And on the other end too. Now, the better you are at this, the more even strokes you can make, and the more you practice also. I haven't done this for a while, so my strokes are what they are. That's okay. One more maybe. Okay, I will pause the recording. We'll continue doing this. And then once I'm done, I'll restart the recording. Okay, here I am. So I have finished this basic, very simple pattern. It is not very even, which is all right. This would be sort of a practice egg. And now what I will do is, somebody asked me whether we score the eggs. So I have the double vinegar here. I'm not sure whether you can see that because it might be a mirror image. And often what people do is they put it into the vinegar for, just like maybe 30 seconds, a minute, to sort of make sure that the egg has been cleaned off of all kinds of things, including fingertips, which, since I'm not using gloves, I don't like using gloves, often is a bit of a problem. Now, because these particular eggs have been giving me some trouble, I wasn't the one who originally cleaned them. I'm gonna leave it in there for a little while, for maybe like a minute or two. And so normally I would just put it in, if it's cleaned well beforehand, I would put it in for 30 seconds, dry it, put it in a dye, but I will leave it here for some time, and then maybe like a minute or so to let the vinegar take off any sort of residual other things that might have been on the shell. And then I will rinse it, which normally I also wouldn't do if it's just a quick dip. And then I'll bring it back and show it to you again, and then we'll put it in a dye. All right, we are back. The egg is here, just sort of dipping it in paper towel and hoping that the whatever was there that was not needed, or most of it, would be taken out by the vinegar, because what vinegar does, it actually etches off, right? It takes out or I don't know, dissolves the outer layers of the skin, or at least, you know, takes off some of the whatever was there that was left over after the egg was emptied. Now, what I have here, I have a jar with the dye that I made almost exactly a week ago from coreopsis extract. Now, extracts in some ways are very sort of easy to make, and they are also the most sort of similar to the processes, the most similar to the process we use with chemical dyes. Let me change the angle here. And so, you know, it's sort of, it's a good thing to start when you're doing natural dyes on eggs. But at the same time, the fun of it being, you know, working with actual real dye stuff and real leaves and wood chips and whatever it is that we use is sort of gone. Now I'm going to let it sit there for a while. I don't know how it's going to act because it's not particularly fresh. It seems to me that the coreopsis, at least this time, was working really well on the second day of it being made, better than on the first day. But I don't know how it will act now. But I have another egg here that I started a few days ago. So this is the egg that had on white, what you see in this sort of whitish grayish wax. This is what was there on wax. And then I put it in this same coreopsis dye that I use now. And this is how it came out. So the wax, where it's applied to the surface, it blocks the dye from getting attaching to the surface, right? So it covers the surface. And then when we have this now, this is a yellow egg, whatever pattern we will apply now will remain yellow on the egg. Whatever was applied when the egg was white will remain white, especially once we take the dye out. So I'm gonna add a few things here. This is also a traditional pattern, or, you know, semi-traditional. I really like using traditional patterns. I find it is sort of, there is more to it than otherwise. Here you can see there is a bit of a stain. Maybe this was where the egg was touching the jar or something like that. And so often it's a good idea to sort of move your egg around a bit so that it gets proper coverage everywhere. Since this egg is emptied, it floats, right, in the jar, so you have to weigh it down with something. And so this is what I did. And then we'll just add a few things here and there. So sort of like I don't know, leafy things. Originally, it seems that this pattern, this part that I'm doing now was done on green or with green, might have also been done with green wax and left on the egg. But if the background is supposed to be sort of pinkish, coralish red, and so if I put it in green, the only way for me to do it now would be to put it in iron and let this coreopsis turn green. And then I don't want to mess my my red dye with iron in it. So technically it would be possible if you had other dyes ready, if you had something ready that would give you green. All right, and some twigs on this side. Now, again, the less you sort of rush and the more you take your time, the more you sort of are calm when you're doing this, the more even are the strokes. Since this is just a sort of demo as opposed to something you would want to do and keep for other purposes, and often these were done for purposes of keeping them or of gifting them, especially around Easter. You would sort of want them to be done in calm kind of manner, and there are all kinds of legends that are related to those. Now, this is what we have. So we have some stuff that was covered on white egg, some stuff that was covered on a yellow egg, and now I'm going to put it in my cochineal extract dye, which I have in a different jar right here. And let's see how that goes. So with natural dyes, you never quite know what they're gonna do and how. So it goes in a jar, and I'm gonna sort of weigh it down with that ladle. Put it back, and let's see what our yellow egg is doing. All right. So now you can see it is already sort of semi-yellow, and it is possible at this point this coreopsis dye that I already used for quite a few eggs might not give me more, in which case I might just keep it like this and deal with it, or I might put it back in and wait for some more time, or I might take it out and let it sit, let it dry, and then do this again. I think I'm gonna leave it at least until we have the other one also ready, so that I'll show you how we remove the wax of both of them. And let's see what is happening with this already. So often, if your dyes are kind of strong enough, so you see this one here is sort of doing some of its own stuff, not particularly predictably. It is not very pink. It is instead turning a bit of something else. But let's see how it goes. If we are really unhappy with the color, ultimately I might end up removing the dye completely with vinegar, etching it out, and putting it on again, but we'll see. So I will leave it, I'll pause the recording, and we'll get back to it. All right, so I'm making an executive decision to take this out. So this is our coreopsis. And I don't have a dedicated paper towel yet, so I will just, let me actually move the camera. So this is my egg. This is how it's coming out of the dye. I'll just take it, put the dye away, and just pat it. I just love coreopsis. Me and coreopsis extract has been the love from the first sight. Okay, so we will put this here. And now our egg that was in the cochineal. So it is sort of somewhat, semi-disastrous in the way that the dye is not quite even, but this sometimes happens, and I could sort of do a number of things to remedy it, but for the purpose of our today's demo, I will not. I will just leave it the way it is. And then what you would want to do then, you would want to make sure that you remember to unplug the hole from the egg. Sometimes the wax comes off really easily. And you would, I would normally let it sit for a while, and sometimes even like a day or two, so it dries and rests properly and all of this. Okay, this plug. So we want to easily come. We want to unplug the egg because we're going to heat it now to remove the wax. And if it's plugged, it might explode on us. Now, traditionally, what you would do is you would actually put this next to the candle flame, heat it on the candle flame, and then wipe it. But I have been converted to the technologically advanced ways of doing this. So what I will do is I use the heat gun to remove my wax. And I'm gonna take a bit of a softer tissue. This is going to be my dedicated yellow towel, which I will keep. A softer tissue to wipe the egg. So here is my heat gun. Looks like this, one of those cheap heat guns. And I will just sort of turn it on and put the heat on the egg. And then I just take an egg and gently wipe off the rest of the wax. And here is the egg. It's hot now, so I don't want to. Okay. So here's what it looks like, and I'm going to take a proper photo and also show that. Okay, so this is with wax removed, and now we'll do the same with the other egg. And gently wipe off the wax. And so here is what we have. We have some white, that was when wax was applied on the wax egg, and we have yellow where the wax was applied on the yellow egg. And the background is this sort of not very even, I don't know, kind of reddish brown sort of a color. All right, so this is how I do it. This is how it can be done. Thank you all for watching.